Well, good morning, church. Thank you for joining us for our deep dive. We're in the Passion Week in the book of John, and everything's going to follow through. And as we prepare for Easter, as we go through these verses, through these chapters, we're reminded of what Christ went through to die for us, to be rose again, as we'll see on Easter morning. And today we're in the section in which Christ has now been arrested, and it says in verse 12, so the Roman cohort and the commander, the officer of the Jews, arrested Jesus and bound him. They led him to Annas first, for he was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who was the high priest. You know, we know the physical torture that Jesus is going to go through as he's going to be beaten, as he's going to be crucified. We know the spiritual torture that Christ, one with the Father, is going to have that moment of spiritual separation when all the sins of the world are placed upon him, and that perfect fellowship will be broken as he will say, you know, Father, why have you forsaken me? But do we think sometimes of the emotional torture Jesus was about to endure? He was starting this evening that was going to be a long evening all night into the next day. And here he's first before Annas, and he's going to be questioned. We'll see that a little later in the chapter. And then he's going to be sent to Caiaphas. And then we know he's going to be sent to the full Sanhedrin. Then he's going to be sent to Pilate, who really tries to wash his hands of it. So he sends them to Herod, who sends him back to Pilate before he's eventually going to be sentenced to death. I'm just thinking of the emotional turmoil of going through that, standing before the people, especially the Jews, who Jesus was one. Jesus came to redeem the world, but he came to offer the kingdom to the Jews, and they reject him. And they even manipulate the situation so they can look like they've washed their hands of it, and it can look like the Romans have killed Jesus. They had nothing to do with it when they were the ones who orchestrated the whole situation. See, I think Jesus suffered in all these ways. He suffered physically, he suffered spiritually, but he suffered emotionally. And so I think that's why it tells us in Hebrews that we have a high priest in Jesus who understands us. Because guess what? He has suffered the kind of things we have suffered. I think he suffered it to a greater degree than we ever could suffer. And yet Jesus, knowing all that was before him, gladly went to the cross and died that we might be connected to him. So next time we feel alone, next time you feel like, man, I'm overwhelmed. This has been a crazy day. Remember Christ. Remember what he went through. Remember the strength of God for him to go through it is the strength that God offers us to have the power to live each day that we face. Even those days that we're like, oh my goodness, I would never want to live this day again. God is there and he cares. And I think in these next couple weeks, as we're going to work through the story of his arrest, of his crucifixion, of his resurrection, what a great time that's going to coincide with our Easter celebration to remind us how much he loved us. Because he lived the life to be a perfect sacrifice, that he could die for us, that our sins could be placed on him and his righteousness placed on us. And the resurrection is the proof that he is who he says he is. Thank you again for being part of our deep dive. I hope you'll continue with us tomorrow.